All right, everybody. Welcome to episode, I believe, 24 in honor of Ken
Mhm.
Griffey Jr. It will never be in honor of Kobe Bryant on this podcast. Episode 24 of the
Mamba.
Sports and Nothing Else podcast. Kyle, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. I'm in the coldest room in northern Indiana currently. There's no heat in here, so we're bundled up. Going with the
Yeah.
full Rogers today.
Yeah, you look great. You look great. That's a look that only you could pull off. I'm hoping for the long hair by May or so. We got a lot to talk about. There has been a lot going on. And again, I'm just going to apologize every time on this. Our schedules, we enjoy doing this, but our schedules do not enjoy us doing this. And so, and then we do them and I forget to
Post them.
they're on YouTube, but they're not even titled right because I upload them and then forget about them. So if you're listening to this, hopefully you know there was another one filmed a week or so ago, and you can take them both. We're gonna try to go fast tonight because Kyle's in a hurry. I'm not in a hurry because The Bachelorette's on in my house, and I have no desire to watch that at all. So
Is that your recommendation for this week?
no, if this can go an hour and 33 minutes, it will get me to the end, and that will do the trick. So, but Kyle doesn't have that long. So
if this goes an hour and 33 minutes, it will get me to the end of my marriage. So.
Well, we don't want that because we like Amanda a lot. So let's do this. I told you I was going to grill you on the NFL playoff picture to get started.
Okay.
So let's see if you can get this right. Who's the number one seed in the AFC to get started?
It used to be my Titans. It's not my Titans.
Nope.
It's either the Patriots or the Ravens.
That's it. The Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson threw 4 interceptions on Sunday night and won the game.
That's because Baker's terrible.
Oh boy. So that you've hit the top 3 seeds. Ravens 1, Patriots 2, Titans 3, and then it gets dicey pretty fast. You think you can get the last 4 teams that are technically in the playoffs right now?
The Bengals are in, correct?
5 seed.
Are the Bills in?
6 seed.
Are the Dolphins going to sneak in? The Colts?
No, the Dolphins definitely are on the outside looking in. The Colts are not quite in. It's 2 teams from the AFC West.
I'm missing the best division, aren't I?
Well, no, at this point.
Well,
but
what used to be. Okay, so the Chiefs.
Yeah. 4 seed.
Raiders?
Nope.
Can I cheat?
It's still the Chargers.
Chargers
still the Chargers at 6 and 5. It's a mess. The bottom of both conferences are an absolute mess. When we get to the 6 and 7 seeds in the NFC, it's outrageous that those teams are the 6 and 7 seeds. But Kyle, who's the number 1 seed in the NFC? It's actually the number 1 overall seed right now.
That's the Cardinals.
It's the Cardinals, who haven't started Kyler Murray in like 4 weeks. Still the number 1 seed. Followed by, see if you can get them.
Tampa?
Tampa's 3.
Rams?
5.
Packers?
2.
Rodgers?
Rodgers.
Cowboys?
4. Those are the easy ones. The top 5 are easy. 6 and 7 are an outrage.
Saints?
No.
It's not the Eagles.
No. After they lost the
Joel's Niners. Joel's Niners have won 3 in a row.
Joel's Niners are the 6th seed, and the 7 seed won last night.
Oh, Washington football team.
Washington football
It's not
team.
the Bears, though.
No, the Bears aren't even. The Bears are so bad. Washington has a losing record and is your 7 seed right now at this point in the season. Taylor Heineke is their quarterback. So that leads us to a quick power ranking. Who would you say to you right now are your top 5 teams in the NFL? Doesn't even have to be in order, but you can if you want.
So I think I picked Arizona last time I made a pick, and I'm going to stick there. The 9-2 with no Kyler. I mean, to me, they've shown quite a bit.
I agree.
And then in no particular order, probably Green Bay, New England, Tampa Bay, and the Rams still, I guess.
Really?
To me, Stafford doesn't look even a semblance of healthy. So if they can get him healthy by the playoffs,
That's fair. They have the most talent. I think they might have the most talented team, at least from a top-heavy perspective. I actually think the three best teams are in the NFC. I think it's the Cardinals and the Packers and the Bucks. The Colts are playing really well, and the Bucks went in there and took it from them in the second half this week. And then to me, it's the Patriots and the Chiefs. I don't trust the Ravens. I don't trust the Titans. I mean, the Titans have no skill guys left. They have none. AJ Brown's on IR. Julio Jones is on IR. Derrick Henry's out for the year. There was just no way that they were going to beat the Patriots this week because there's just no. It's not Tannehill's fault. They had nobody. I mean, he made lemonade out of lemons a lot this week, and they still got smoked in the end.
Yep.
So,
well, their defense looked really good for about 3 quarters, and then they just got wore down, and their offense couldn't move the ball. I mean, you're on the field for 3 straight quarters, essentially.
Yeah. So, sneaky, frisky teams, Rams and Cowboys still apply. The Patriots definitely, although I said them. And the Bills. You can't.
I mean, we haven't named the top team in the AFC yet. I mean, the Ravens are still frisky.
I don't know. I just don't see it. Lamar, that to me was like, oh, there's playoff Lamar coming up a little bit early. 4 interceptions in a primetime game. Their defense has been pretty bad, but yeah, they're the 1 seed right now. I think, and the problem is, I think people think the Patriots are going to end up as the 1 seed. They got to play the Bills 2 more times, and there's a real chance the Bills beat them twice. And so the Bills are another team that we probably need to take a little bit seriously. They demolished the Saints on Thursday night. Everybody was tired and had no reason to stay up and watch that game because it was over quickly. So anyhow, that's the NFL. I mean, again, we've talked about this week to week. There's just no judging the NFL. What am I supposed to do with the Raiders going into Dallas and beating them after it looked like their season was over? What am I supposed to do with the Broncos beating the Chargers by 15? I don't know what to do with any of these games. I mean, the Giants beating the Eagles after the Eagles had looked great 2 weeks in a row.
Cincy looked like the best team that's ever played last week.
Yeah, Cincy beats the Steelers by 500,000. I mean, I know what to do with the Steelers. They don't have a quarterback, and so
they're done. Or running.
A couple teams to watch. The Dolphins, who have a really easy schedule for the next few weeks, are playing unbelievably well right now. Oh, who else doesn't have a quarterback? Carolina, no matter who's healthy.
Oof.
Cam, Darnold, Walker might be the best quarterback on their roster.
I think he probably is.
That's a problem. Just a lot of mediocre teams, which means a lot of you just can't know what's going to happen from week to week because some weeks, like the Vikings, for instance, Cousins will look incredible and they got skilled guys everywhere and they look awesome. And then the next week, it's like
the tie to the Lions, who are not going to win a game the rest of the year.
No, so it's hard to figure out. But I know Seattle's bad. I know the Browns are bad because their quarterback situation is a mess. We know the Steelers are bad. The Panthers are bad. The Giants and the Eagles are bad. We know who's bad. It's hard to know who's really good.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll see. This is an interesting week of games. And last week, Arizona and Kansas City were on bye, which are 2 of our more consistently decent teams, at least recently. So we'll see. This week, Carolina, Cleveland, Green Bay, Tennessee on a bye. Good for you and your team.
Good.
In Cleveland for
Could
sure.
not come at a better time.
Rodgers with his broken toe. You got a broken toe too, like Rodgers?
Yeah. I stubbed it on a dog bone the other day.
There you go. All right. So that's our NFL power rankings and our NFL talk. Looks like rookie of the year is Mac Jones. And there is, as was discussed on a podcast that we both listened to, there's really no one for MVP right now. You had to put money on it. I'd put money on Tom Brady. I really would. And I'm on a hot streak betting because I won one game on Sunday.
One parlay.
I read a tweet Sunday morning that said Stafford is battling chronic back, shoulder, something else pain, and then they were playing in Green Bay this week. I said, well, they're not going to win. And I knew the Patriots weren't going to lose to the Titans, so we did a little money line parlay. Good payout on that one. So now I got some money to play around with and lose the next couple of weeks. So that'll be great. All right. We both grew up near South Bend. Both grew up hating Notre Dame for obvious reasons. The fans, some of which are on this, watch this podcast, and I love dearly. It's a difficult fan base to deal with. It's a school that's, it's a great school. And so you have, there's some natural pretentiousness to it. Michigan fans are the same way, by the way. And then the Notre Dame fans feel like they have this terrible disadvantage academically, except they let all those football players in. It doesn't really matter. So that's nonsense. But Brian Kelly left like abruptly on a team that looks like they might make the playoffs now because of the chaos that's happened ahead of them. And so I would love for Notre Dame to finish fourth and Georgia to just beat them like a drum. But Brian Kelly leaves. He goes to LSU, 10 years, $95 million. Lincoln Riley, the day before, leaves Oklahoma abruptly and goes to USC. So, Kyle, I have a question for you. Which coach wins a national championship first of the two that left, and why?
I think probably Brian Kelly. USC hasn't really been relevant in like 15 years. It's about all the analysis I have. I do have some analysis off topic for this.
Please.
Why can a coach that recruited a bunch of players in leave in the middle of a season, but you can't transfer in the middle of a season, and half the time you can't even transfer and be eligible the next year?
Well, they've changed some of those rules now. So the transfer portal, it means you pretty much can leave, especially if a coach leaves. You're pretty much good to go. I mean, like a lot of Oklahoma's 5-star recruits are from Southern California that are coming in soon, and they all decommitted the minute Lincoln Riley left. And so it looks like there's a pretty decent chance that they'll end up at USC, which is why my answer to my question would be USC, because Brian Kelly goes to the SEC where there's 3 teams that can make the playoff every year for sure. And LSU has often been one of them, obviously, although not the last couple of years. And I think in USC, in a really weak Pac-12, I think he can turn them into the Clemson of the Pac-12, basically, where there's no team that can really deal with them. Because if you look at the number one recruiting hotbed is actually Southern California. And USC has not been keeping those people in state. And if he can get those people to stay in state, which the selling point is obvious, like USC is a good school. It's in a great place. I mean, this is not like freaking going to Norman, Oklahoma. Like, this is Southern California. Then he can win the Pac-12 over and over and over again. And then you just have more shots at it. I also think Brian Kelly is a hothead and a prick, as I have mentioned on Facebook a couple times tonight on different people's posts who were posted about that first. And I don't know that he's going to handle the pressure of LSU very well. I actually think he may keep seeing these coaches getting bought out and fired and getting like 7 years of free money and thought, you know what? I'm not going to get fired at Notre Dame because they're just going to win 10 games every year. If I go to LSU and either it'll be great and we'll be awesome, or I'll get fired with 7 years left on my deal and collect like $60 million to do nothing. So there you go. What do you think?
That's a heck of an approach.
I mean, listen, I wish I was good enough at a job to go somewhere and get that kind of contract and have that kind of security, win or lose. That would be nice. Ask John Wall and Russell Westbrook how nice that must be to be paid $40 million a year and not be any good at what you're doing. John Wall, they're not even letting him play. He's making $45 million a year. So anyhow, I thought that was really interesting. And you're talking about Brian Kelly's leaving a team that could play in the playoff. And he did this to Cincinnati when he left for Notre Dame. He literally was like, guess what? Peace. And that team was like ready to possibly play in the national championship game. They had Marty Gilliard and Tony Pike and not a lot of household names, but good players. And then they were playing in a BCS Bowl. And I think Tim Tebow beat them senseless because they didn't have their coach and so on. So I think he's kind of one of the worst guys, but he's a good coach.
By all accounts, I think he spent 11 minutes announcing it to the entire team and just left.
Oh, that has been amended. It was less than 2 minutes, actually. Oh. I'm up there at 7 a.m. to talk to them for less than 2 minutes.
Wow.
There's some interesting stories if you dig deep on him. He's just not a high character guy. He's a good football coach. Ty Miller, listener of this podcast, friend of the podcast, mentioned that he reminds him a little bit of Bob Knight, which I think is fair, although Bob Knight has had more success than Brian Kelly. Low character, low moral, really a prick, but an outstanding coach. I think Brian Kelly fits into that bucket. I mean, in some ways, Nick Saban might fit into that bucket too.
Yeah.
But I think he's a little more high character than Brian Kelly. honestly. All right. College football. We love it. We're going to talk about the playoff at the end. My Iowa Hawkeyes are going to be playing Michigan, who, by the way, listen, I hate Michigan, to be clear. But congrats, Michigan. What a nice win. It really manhandled Ohio State. And while I'm happy for none of the fans, I am happy for the players who don't deserve my hate just because of the people that root for them. So congrats to Michigan. You won one. Jim Harbaugh, get yourself a new pair of khakis. Well done. I hope you lose 10 more in a row. You have anything to add on that?
This is not exactly my wheelhouse here,
I know.
So I'll let you carry this one.
Okay. Well, they're going to crush my Iowa Hawkeyes this weekend. It's going to make me sad. But nothing would make me happier than Iowa ruining Michigan's season again. It wouldn't be the first time. All right. Things we hate. I've been saving one. You got one for us?
Do yours first. I'll try to come up with something.
All right, listen. I texted you about this last week because I'm passionate about it. And then I had a long discussion with people I work with at lunch today about it. Things I hate. I do not hate the person, to be clear. But Taylor Swift is the thing I hate this week. Listen, her music doesn't speak to me. It's for adolescent girls. It has been for 15 years, which is part of my point in a minute here. I don't like pop music. I don't like country music. I'm out and out, especially that kind of country music, as we've discussed before. Here's my real issue with her, though. And to be clear, if Taylor Swift is your role model, I'd much rather that be your role model than a lot of celebrities, to be clear. However, she is one of the pettiest people that there is. Her whole early group of songs is basically about breakups. And recently, as you may know or may not know, she's been re-recording her songs because basically her label, the guy who owns her catalog, has been holding her hostage, basically, and she wants to own her own music. So she's been doing Taylor's versions, which is a brilliant idea, and it's going to make her an outrageous amount of money, and has adored her to her fans even more, who are basically a cult. And so she redid her song that's about Jake Gyllenhaal, which he got absolutely blasted again for something that happened 10 years ago. And I had it explained to me at lunch and blah, 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 the whole thing. Listen, she's just a very, very petty person. And so much of her music is about these relationships that, like, as if she's not at fault for dating some of these people. And it's the weaponizing of memories. There are people that do this. They weaponize memories. One, to make themselves look good, but two, to go after other people. And it's not a flattering look. And to me, she's been 16 for like 16 years now. And that's how she writes her music, and that's how she interacts with people. And there are people that love that, and they're mostly young girls, and good for you. I don't mind that. It's just that I don't know. There's something about her that's always rubbed me the wrong way. Like, she's very polished and very, like, everything is obviously on purpose. I don't think that you often really get the real version of her, because I don't think the real version of her is all that great. What do you have to say about all that?
I mean, I can't really dispute that. It's basically a persona that's made up that you could make that argument for a lot of musical artists, but the following that you get with her is fairly absurd, in my opinion. With a wife who is a fan of it, I have to listen to way more than I'd like to, but yeah, I don't have a strong opinion, I don't think.
Okay.
Other than that, it's not my kind of music.
Some of this should be said. Brilliant songwriter, like brilliant, obviously. Clearly knows what she's doing. She has a better plan than most musicians do, obviously. She's been selling out stadiums for her whole, I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, her bona fides, they're not arguable. She's the most successful musical act of your and my generation. She just is. I just personally have no taste for her. Now, if my friend Dave Ross is listening to this podcast, I'm going to get a tongue lashing at soccer this weekend. I can tell you that. Because he loves her, and more. Again, I don't have a problem with it. The other thing I mentioned at lunch today, and this is partly because I work at a church, I have a number of employees and a number of people that I know that almost treat her as like a godlike figure. Like every little piece of news, everything is like followed in a way that makes me uncomfortable as someone who has devoted my life to Jesus instead of people. And so that's part of it for me, is that the worship of celebrity is pretty gross to me. It's why you won't see me wearing a lot of jerseys, even though I love sports. Except ironically, sometimes, like, my Grady Sizemore jersey, who I love. But, or my Sean Kemp Sonics jersey, things like that. Chris Webber Bullets. That's a classic. But anyhow, that's my whole thing. And listen, if you love Taylor Swift, continue to love Taylor Swift. If it brings you joy, great. Just doesn't bring me any. That's all. And now I'm done. You got a thing you hate?
So for anyone listening to this podcast, you can tell I've done a lot of prep work this week. One thing that this kind of leads me into my family fiasco as well. So I don't even remember if I told this story, but we had a slight accident in our garage a week and a half ago. Someone, I'm not going to name names, that lives in my house, that wasn't me, decided to drive the car into the garage door. So I got to fix the garage door. Actually, Jordan fixed the garage door, but I'm going to take credit for it because I didn't wreck the car. And shattered the windshield. So what I am fed up with is the current state of, the back windshield, so not the front one. Current state of the manufacturing business, which clearly no fault of their own, that nothing can be ordered on time. But we had a guy come out to fix it a week and a half ago and didn't have all the parts. So now the parts had to be ordered from the dealer, and the dealer's 2 to 4 weeks out. So I've been driving the trash bag car around for, I think, 3 weeks now, and I've got at least 3 more weeks to go. So called insurance, was seeing if I could get a rental, if they would pay for the rental. And of course, I've been waiting on that for multiple days. So really, really been awesome. And it's perfect weather here to be driving around with
that's a lie.
Basically a Superman cape behind the car. If it rains, it's wet, then the cape falls off and then it gets wet inside. And yeah, so it's been wonderful. Really enjoying my commute to work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of the worst. I'm sorry about that. It's funny. Someone that lives in my house not all that long ago also backed into the garage door, and it wasn't me. If you want to read between the lines on that one,
Micah.
Yes, Micah was driving the van around. Might as well have been. And we had a guy come out to look at it, and I was like, "Hey, if this were your door, what would you do?" And he said, "Well, right now, I would absolutely have me fix it because they're up like 50% in price because everything's backed up and we're on a quota. We can only get so many garage doors right now." I was like, okay, go ahead and fix it. So that's just where we're at. I mean, I've been to Sam's Club recently. 3 weeks in a row, I didn't have potato chips and Doritos for my concession stand. There's just random stuff that you just can't get right now. So, and with this new variant of virus coming and people shutting stuff down already, it could get worse, not better. I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah, COVID corner's back. All right,
COVID corner is not bad. No, it's not. It is not bad.
I can't even get my hair gel right now. It tripled in price. It's $30.
Oh my gosh.
That's why I'm going with the Rogers. I'm just fully letting myself go. I'm gonna be on the bag and pretty soon.
Shortly before we started, LeBron James tested positive and is in COVID protocol, by the way.
Oh, nice. So the Lakers, who are at 500 right
the
now,
Lakers are
be in the cellar.
All right. Major League free agents. It has been, by the way, again, we should mention, we're like 3 days away from a lockout in the major leagues. And Kyle and I are just hoping that like mid-February they can sort it out so they can get spring training up and running and play baseball this year. From a strictly financial standpoint, for me, I'm in huge trouble if they don't play a baseball season this year because of what I have in baseball cards. So please figure it out, millionaires and billionaires. And if your perspective, by the way, on this is those guys make enough money, what are they complaining about? Please don't have that perspective anymore. The owners are all billionaires. They all make money on the teams, and half of them won't put a competitive product on the field. It is not the players' fault. It's the owner's fault.
Also not the players or the owners that suffer. It's all of the employees that profit off of not only the people that work at the ballpark, but the people that own businesses surrounding the ballpark. So,
yep. And minor league players who are living in like almost third world conditions on some teams. Like, this is why the lockout is needed. And it's up to the owners to pony up and do a better job taking care of their labor. I don't want to see a strike. I don't care if Max Scherzer gets paid or not. He's going to get paid. It's the guys that are, the ones that get traded every year, and the guys that are kind of playing in AAA for the third or fourth year and don't really know where they're not even making a living wage. Like, that's unconscionable for, somebody that's worth $7 billion to not, pay $40,000 a year to their minor league players. It's ridiculous. So sorry, I wasn't planning on ranting on that too. I thought Taylor Swift was going to be enough today. But Kyle, of the free agent signings, and I'm going to go down them in a minute here, is there one that jumped out to you as especially good or bad, or maybe you have both?
So as far as the bad, what on earth are the Rangers doing?
They're going to have a good middle infield.
Probably, but Marcus Semien has been the definition of up and down. He's going to be, 38 by the time that contract's done, and Corey Seager's hurt every single year. So
that's the worst one.
$300 and some million, more than that, $500 and some million tied up into two guys that are both kind of towards the end of their prime and inconsistent, and the other that literally never plays an entire season. And you don't have anything else on that team. They weren't even close last year.
No, that's the thing. I mean, here is the truth. Marcus Semien's last two full seasons, 2019, he played 162 games, 33 homers, 92 RBIs, walked 87 times, OPS 892. Last year, 45 and 102, 66 walks, a lot of strikeouts, but his OPS was 873. Like, listen, that's 2 third-place MVP finishes surrounded by a COVID year that he was not good at all. He was really, really bad. So I think I don't mind the 7 for 175 or whatever that was. That's reasonable to me. But here's the truth about Corey Seager. He is making 10 years, 325, okay? Which for a shortstop of that caliber doesn't seem too ridiculous until you dig into this, okay? Here's his games played since his first full year, which is 2016. 157, 145, 26, 134. We'll skip the 2020 season, and 95. That's in his prime years. That's in his younger years. He will be 28 when the season starts. That's a 28 to 37 contract for a guy who's had like 2 really good years and has been more hurt than healthy. To me, that's the disastrous part of those contracts. There's just no way he lives up to that contract. Just no way.
Well, and the Rangers have a really good track record with mega contracts for shortstops too. That's really gone well with them in the past.
Yeah, so far. The Andrus and A-Rod contracts, great. So yeah, to me, those were one of them. I think you just sign Semien and say, listen, we know you're not a great shortstop, but hit 40 home runs. Because in Texas, those guys are going to hit home runs. I mean, they're going to hit. But I don't know who's going to pitch the ball. They did sign John Gray, which is on my list of different. So I'm going to go a little crazy here with a one that wasn't really a free agent. Here's my favorite signings of the offseason so far. It's a guy that didn't change teams. The Rays, now you know what I'm talking about. Maybe. Signed Wander Franco for 11 years, $192 million. Did I get that right? I think so.
So
that's a lot of money. But in about year 5, he might be the best player in baseball of that contract. I mean, it's going to end up being an outrageous bargain as long as he's healthy, because he's going to hit. He's going to play premium defense. He's going to run. It's a steal. I mean, the Braves have a similar contract right now with Acuna. It's not as long. And they have one with Albies, which is literally stealing. If you go look at Albies' contract, most of those contracts work. The Astros once signed John Singleton to a long one. It did not work. It wasn't nearly for that. It was not that much money.
It was like $28 million.
Yeah, it didn't end up hurting them at all because it just was not that big a deal. These are just really low risk, high reward. The Rays did one with Evan Longoria one time, which was stealing. There have been a lot of examples of these ending up being really bad deals for the players. not often for ownership. So that's a great one. All right, I'm going to run down them. Just we'll talk about them. Max Scherzer to the Mets, Eduardo Escobar to the Mets, Starling Marte to the Mets, Mark Canha to the Mets. A lot of stuff to the Mets. Kevin Gossman to the Blue Jays, one of my favorites. It rounds out a rotation that looks really interesting with a devastating lineup.
Here's a question though: why sign Gossman and not just keep Robbie Ray?
A good question. I don't know. I don't have your answer.
And I had that same question with the Twins when the Twins were looking at trying to sign Robbie Ray. Why not just keep Barrios last year? I don't understand.
Another good question. Javi Baez to the Tigers, which is interesting. You can tell they're kind of in like how the Cubs were back in the day, where it's like, hey, we got a lot of talent coming, so maybe we're going to start signing some veterans now. Marcus Semien, as we've covered, and Corey Seager to the Rangers. An interesting flyer by the Angels on Noah Syndergaard, 1 year, $21 million. Probably he'll be overpaid, but there's a potential that he stabilizes a rotation that really needs it. They're going to be, go ahead.
I hear the seeds being planted in another Ranger or Angels over bet that you're going to regret. So,
well, and the thing that they do,
seeds.
They're going to have a 6-man rotation because they have to with Ohtani, which also helps Syndergaard coming back from surgery. So
they're going to have a 6-man rotation with 3 good pitchers.
Maybe 3, maybe. Robbie Ray went to the Mariners, which sneaky, really nice for them because they also added Adam Frazier in a trade, and they look interesting. John Gray to the Rangers, as we said. Your team re-signed Byron Buxton, 7 years, $100. He will probably play 3 years worth of games in those 7 years, but he has major escalators in that contract for high MVP finish.
MVP.
So we'll see. Another one I loved, the Marlins, Sandy Alcantara. Extended him 5 years, 55. He's their ace. He's a really good pitcher. And then there's been some other small ones. Of note, still available, Clayton Kershaw, Freddie Freeman, Trevor Story, Carlos Correa. Those are really good players.
Chris Bryant,
yes. Rangers have been linked to Bryant and Trevor Story, which would be wild if Trevor Story re-signed with the Rangers because he was famously unhappy there. But the Yankees clearly still want a shortstop. I don't think they can sign Correa because he basically dumped all over Derek Jeter the other day.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's a weird one. Anything else you want to say about free agency besides the fact that we can get all excited about this and then be depressed in 3 days when
that no one's going to actually even play for 5 more months, 6 more months.
But I saw today Freeman won 6 years, 180. If the Braves don't give Freeman 6 years, 180, they should fold their franchise. The year after winning the World Series, that would be an egregious.
You have to.
I mean, that's like a discount. Look at these contracts. Javi Baez just got 6 years, 175. He's one of the worst players in baseball last year. Like, I don't know.
He was really good when he got to New York, but
he was
fine. Awful the first half.
All right. Oh, I did want to talk about the Mets real quick though. Like Eduardo Escobar, no one really knows about Eduardo Escobar, but
he was better. He was better than Lindor last year.
Oh well, yeah. Well, so I mean, I was better than Lindor. I was on my couch. I mean, last year Eduardo Escobar hit 28 home runs. In 2019, Eduardo Escobar hit 35 home runs. You know, he's going to strike out. He's not going to hit for a huge average, but he had an 831 OPS in 2019, 786 last year. He's an interesting player. And that's a really nice little pickup for the Mets. Canha is a good player. He's not exciting, but they all get excited about Michael Conforto. Guess what? I think I'd rather have Mark Canha. Starling Marte last year was awesome for multiple teams. And so they just added a ton of depth. And this is where, like, again, Steve Cohen buys the Mets. He has more money than anyone besides like 5 people in the United States. And it's a competitive advantage for them. He doesn't care about the luxury tax. He doesn't care about anybody. It's like the guy recently bought a statue, like a sculpture for $165 million. This looks stupid. He doesn't care about money. And so he can give Scherzer 3 years, 140. Who cares? and so I'd be thrilled if I were a Mets fan. I was laughing. There's a tweet someone tweeted the other day. The Mets, nobody wants to go there, and they want to spend money, and people want to go to the Yankees, and they don't want to spend any money. It's quite the role reversal. So anyhow, I thought that was a really interesting splurge. Now Scherzer may be close to cooked, but I think good depth added. I mean, Lindor can't be as bad as he was last year.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think they're interesting.
And it's a division that outside of the Braves is not very deep or very good. So you might as well make a run at it.
Yeah, I mean, the Marlins still aren't there. The Phillies have been perpetually mediocre for, congrats, Bryce Harper on your MVP. He hit a whole bunch of meaningless home runs. Great, super. Anyhow, so I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a really interesting baseball season. If it happens, it feels like more teams are trying to win than there were last year. Mm-hmm. So I think you had revenue actually come in for an entire season, and teams take a deep breath and go, okay, the world's not going to end. We can spend some money. And the Rangers out of nowhere what that's going to do is going to drive up other free agents because two shortstops that teams wanted are on the same team. Yeah. And so there may be some interesting trades too. I'm really looking forward to it, especially if they can get their labor stuff settled, which, come on, please. Baseball, you're in no position to alienate more fans. You're just not. Please. For my bank account, if anything else. Anyhow. Okay. Right, Steve Bachman? Right. Okay. Anything you want to mention NBA-wise? I know you got to go soon, so.
I'm really excited for the Warriors game that's going to end at 1:00 tonight, but I haven't gotten to watch a lot of sports in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, so I don't have a ton of immaculate insight here. I don't know. Who would be your this is my topic, and I've got nothing right now. Who would be your top 4 choices to win the NBA Finals right
now? That's the problem. It's hard to get to 4. I mean, I think it would be Bucks, Nets, Warriors, Suns. I actually think that's a pretty clear 4. I don't believe in the Bulls. I actually don't really believe in the Heat. I believe in the Heat as like a really scrappy, possible Eastern Conference Finals team, but they're not beating the Bucks or the Nets. So I'm not
especially with the Bucks having Boogie Cousins now, game changer.
Boogie. Yeah, I mean, the 76ers, that's just a circus. Ben Simmons it just continues to be quite the ride. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. The East, the 11 seed is the Cavs, Hawks, and the Celtics, and the Sixers are the 8, 9, 10, and 11. They're all 11 and 10. In the West, 11 and 10 would make you the 5 seed. So it's kind of weird. There seems to be a little more depth in the East. And there's some teams that we thought might be good that are not good, like the Nuggets and the Trailblazers, the Hawks, the Celtics. Those are not good teams right now. And so, yeah, to me, the Warriors are 18 and 2. They've won 7 in a row. They get Klay Thompson back eventually. The Suns have won 16 games in a row. 16. Those 2 teams, to me, even above the teams in the East, should be the favorites right now, I think, unless Kyrie Irving gets back or whatever.
And the Jazz have looked interesting of late. If the Clippers can sneak in with the 4 or 5 seed and get Kawhi back, I mean, that's a legit contender because Beverly has looked really good again. And Paul George has looked even better than last year.
Beverly's not even on their team.
Or not Beverly.
Reggie Jackson.
Yep.
Yeah. Beverly's on the
starting right now. Yep.
Yeah. All right. That's our basketball of note. Not a lot going on. Evan Mobley, by the way, should win Rookie of the Year, and if he doesn't, I quit. He's awesome. He's back, and the Cavs are immediately winning again because he's back. They're 11 and 5 when he plays. The Cleveland Cavaliers are 11 and 5 when Evan Mobley plays. He's really good. All right. I thought about using some of my winnings from the weekend to try to bet on Georgia to win the national championship because I just don't really see a path. That, to me, Alabama's their best competition. I think they're going to pound them. in the SEC championship game this week. And they should want to, because it gets Alabama out of the playoff. And I think that's the only team that can actually beat Georgia. What do you think their odds are to win the national championship right now?
20-1.
20-1, Georgia. They're number one. They're going to make the playoffs.
8-1.
No, they're minus 250. You bet $100, you win, or you bet $250, you win $100. They're like, I've never seen it quite like this before. The next best option is Alabama at plus 800, which is an interesting bet, by the way. But the problem is they probably have to beat Georgia twice. And I don't know how they would do that because I've watched those teams play. Michigan, great win this week. They're not beating Georgia. They probably wouldn't beat Alabama. Cincinnati, those poor guys, they need to not be the 4 seed because Georgia will beat them senseless. They're probably going to play an SEC team either way, and they're probably not going to go well. And then the 4th team is either like Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, Baylor, or something like that. Gross. Not going to happen. So anyhow, Georgia, you can't make any money on at this point, picking them to win the national championship. But I don't know. We might sprinkle a little bit on Alabama just to see what happens. But anyhow, that's our college football playoff talk. Because honestly, we don't.
It.
Sean Baker, my good friend who's been on this podcast, asked me today if we were going to talk about college basketball. And I said, no, neither of us watch any college basketball. But I will say this. I want to go on record about this right now. Duke has a kid, Banchero, who is potentially the number 1 pick. Gonzaga has a kid, Chet Holmgren, who is freaky looking.
So skinny. Looks like Manute Bol in white skin.
Yeah, like 17.
Unbelievable.
I'm going to go on the record on this right away. To me, this is a Greg Oden and Kevin Durant type of situation. I watch Holmgren play. He's playing against a bunch of guys that are still way smaller than him. He's not like, who was billed as like white Kevin Durant. Bull. I watched Kevin Durant as a freshman. That guy was silky smooth, flying all over the floor. He's not that. He's not that coordinated. He'll be a menace defensively no matter what. But he is literally skinnier than me, which is an outrage. And to me, I just haven't seen guys like that translate to the NBA. He's not Kevin Durant. They're not the same. He's more like Yi Jianlan or
the guy on the Thunder, whatever his name is.
Poku.
Poku.
Yeah, but he's not nearly as smooth as Poku. He's much bigger, and he'll be more difficult to deal with defensively for sure because he moves fine, but he doesn't. I don't know.
It's a little jerky.
It's just not. He's not going to be like pulling up from 3 and drilling threes and guys. I just don't see it. But the Banchero kid I'm probably saying his name wrong, at Duke is outstanding and should be the number 1 pick. And if someone doesn't pick him number 1, they're going to regret it. I'd like to say that right away. This is the same person that said Jalen Suggs must go number 1 in the draft in front of Cade Cunningham. And guess what? You know who the guy that really should have gone in front of everybody? Evan Mobley, for sure. So, all right. Do you have is your family fiasco just the running into the garage door situation?
Yeah, my littlest dog has started digging our yard, so it looks like a World War I battlefield out there currently. There's just trenches everywhere, and that mud is then tracked into the house, so we're dealing with that right now. So not an overly funny one, but it's just joyous over here currently.
Awesome. All right, here's my bet of the week. It has everything to do with the fact that every single time I think the NFL makes sense, the next thing that happens doesn't make any sense at all. So my bet of the week is this. The Chargers are going to Cincinnati this week. 2 teams that you can't tell what's happening week to week at all. The Bengals are 3-point favorites. I'm taking the Chargers money line. I'm actually going to have you put this bet in. I don't know how much money yet. I have $66 in my fledgling betting account.
Just rolling, flexed with cash.
Triple though what I had 5 days ago. I don't know. Those 2 teams, you cannot figure them out. I'll take the underdog with getting a good odds on that. And I think Herbert will bounce back. And the Bengals haven't put a lot of good games together in a row. They were rolling. They lost to the Jets. They look terrible. They beat the Steelers senseless. You can't figure them out. So that's my pick for the week. Any thoughts before we go? I'll have a recommendation if you have one.
Sure, go ahead.
We just finished binge watching 2 seasons. Emily had watched the first season of something called The Great on Hulu, which is a significantly liberties taken look at Catherine the Great, former Empress of Russia's life. It's basically completely not true. There's little, I read an article about it. There's little seeds of truth in it. But it's hysterical and wildly irreverent, which I'm in on. So good watch. Got anything?
Check it out. I watched 2 movies since we've gone last. The first was an M. Night Shyamalan movie called The Village. It's terrible, so don't watch that. It wasn't
Everybody knows that movie's terrible.
Well, I'd never seen it, and it looked kind of right down my alley, so I gave it a try, and I regretted it instantly. It was really boring. And the end has a cool twist like every movie that he ever made, and it didn't make it worth it at all. In fact, the twist kind of was disappointing.
Did you watch the weird one on the beach that came out not long ago?
I heard that was awful. I heard it was one of the worst movies ever made.
I didn't watch. No, I'm not watching that movie, so.
No, I have not seen that. I did see a good movie, though, and this is not going to be for everyone. It was pretty intense, but it's called Promising Young Woman. It's about a girl that experiences a really traumatic event while she's in college and basically is out for revenge, and it goes off the rails, but it's really good. So,
All right. Interesting. Well, I think that's it. We managed to get out of here in about 45 minutes, which is good for us. And I'm not going to bed till I post this on Facebook tonight, so I actually take care of it and our friends can watch it. Our very devoted fans who are subscribers to us on YouTube still text me about the podcast because they still watch it even though it's not fancied up for them. So shout out to Joel Seneke, who's always got thoughts. Oh, he said something. I wanted to mention this at the end of the podcast because we were texting about different things. And sorry, if you need to go, you can go if you want, but this won't take long if I can find the text, which I'm sure I can't. He had some notes about our previous podcast that most people haven't listened to because I still haven't renamed it correctly on YouTube. He said, defense is impossible to play effectively for more than a short burst of time, which is why, and teams don't run the ball well, which is why you can't predict what's happening in the NFL right now. But basically, there's no way to know what's going to happen because of the rule changes that have made it so hard to be a physical defense. That offense is like, you watch the Raiders game against Dallas on Thursday, and they basically won the game because of pass interference penalties, many of which wouldn't have been penalties 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so his point is basically offenses have innovated really well and defenses can't really catch up because of the rules. And so there's just going to be games where it looks ridiculous for a defense or an offense or vice versa. And then his final note was Aaron Rodgers is definitely a bad person, a poor human, and please do COVID Corner 2.0. We're not doing it. Not doing it. He wrote that to me because I said I got my COVID booster last week and my 5G from my first 2 shots wasn't working well. So I told him to shoot it right into my brain. I put that on Facebook, and then some people laughed and some people probably were really annoyed by it, which, sorry, everyone. And I mentioned the last team to really play defense like that was the Seahawks, where they basically committed like 20 holding penalties in the secondary every game. And we're like, we dare you to call all these penalties. Richard Sherman will yell at you or break into your home or whatever. And so there just aren't teams that play like that anymore, and maybe that's part of the reason. I mean, I thought the Rams were incredible, and they look now like they can't do anything. The Packers just march up and down the field against them all game against a defense that has Von Miller, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Leonard Floyd. I mean, they're awesome, and I don't know. It's weird. So that's all. I'm done. Everybody, if you listen to this, we love you. If you don't listen to it, you won't know, but we don't love you. Just kidding. All right, see ya.